welcome to God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson. Reach him at GodsFiveMinutes@gmail.com. Now, here's Ed Wilson with God's 5 Minutes.
Hello, friends. Nehemiah 1 reads, "The words of Nehemiah. It came to pass, as I was in Shushan the palace, that Hanani, one of my brethren, came, he and certain men of Judah, and I asked them concerning Jerusalem. And they said unto me, The remnant that are left of the captivity there are in great affliction and reproach. The wall of Jerusalem also is broken down, and the gates thereof are burned with fire. And when I heard these words, I sat down and wept and mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven." The story is that a little party of pious pilgrims had gone from Persia, where the Jews had been carried into captivity, to Jerusalem, and came back to Shushan with a sad tale of weakness and despondency, affliction and hostility. One of the travelers had a brother, a youth named Nehemiah, who was a cupbearer in the court of the Persian king. Although he was surrounded with luxury and lived in a palace, beneath his fine garments beat a Jewish heart, and the ruins of Jerusalem were dearer to him than the pomp of Shushan. These verses tell how he took a great resolution, threw away his brilliant prospects, identified himself with the forlorn little colony, and asked for permission to go and share in, and if possible redress, the sorrows which had so powerfully impinged upon his heart. There exists no direct divine call in the Bible for Nehemiah to do as he did. He could have found many excuses for filing his brother's words on the back shelves of his memory, and thus soon suffocating their appeal. Jerusalem was 100 miles away. He could have decided God had favored him with his cushy position as cupbearer to the king, and that he'd do that job well rather than worry about the fire-blackened walls of the distant city of his ancestry, that the reason it was burned was because of the misbehavior of others and none of his concern. He could have said that experience has shown that those who knew when they were well off and left well enough alone generally had easier lives than those who decided to tilt at windmills. Instead, he let his brother's unhappy message fill his heart and burn there, which brings us to think about ourselves. Christianity, you see, is an evangelistic religion. It believes its teachings, properly applied, contain the answers to life's distresses, and as a belief system based on love, it has concern for the eternal destiny of everyone. It reaches out beyond itself to succor the needy both in soul and body. Jesus' parable of the Good Samaritan has become a byword to all the world of the gentle compassion he brought to earth. At the same time, the message the mild Galilean preached on Capernaum's synagogue, Jerusalem's temple, has been from the time of his apostles the world's most hated and persecuted religion. The dark malevolence that caused Nebuchadnezzar to not be content with simply making the Jews captive, but also to raise their capital city to the ground and destroy its magnificent temple has survived to our time. If Jesus himself came back to minister on earth, he would probably be crucified again. Why then do we devoted Christians accept his admonition to take up our crosses and follow him? It is because a variation of the same love that burned in Nehemiah's heart has been kindled in ours, and it surpasses love of luxury and ease, companionship of kings and lofty titles. Nehemiah's Jerusalem was a city with walls of stones and heavy gates. The New Testament Jerusalem is a city come down from God out of heaven, the Zion of perfected beauty from which God shines. Within her gates there are no hypocrites, for Jesus is himself the gate of the city, and all who are within must pass through his cleansing blood. In her courts divine law is taught, which is the only safe guide for the right way to truth and happiness in this world and the next. On her streets are the footprints of saints and martyrs from the generations before us, who gave us the Holy Bible and often lost their own lives as well. Her heavenly music echoes angel voices in singing of freedom from shame and guilt, brotherly love, and spiritual blessing. Will you help rebuild the walls of that city today?
You have been listening to God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson. Reach him by email at GodsFiveMinutes@gmail.com. Tune in next time to hear more encouraging thoughts from God's Word on God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson.